We're brought to you at 7 o'clock. We're brought to only the headline news, but at 8 o'clock every morning, the second part of it, and that's where we analyze all those stories that were brought to you at 7 o'clock. It will be very much, welcome that you join the conversation. We give it a space to call in on 0807 777 9927. You have the chance, the opportunity to have your say, to discuss, debate, and talk about some of the trending stories that were brought at 7 o'clock. You're absolutely free to criticize, but we will appreciate it if those criticisms are constructive enough. At least, if we have varying opinions, it will not confuse us any further, but rather it will put us in a position to have an understanding, a deeper understanding of the stories and the headlines, and then put us in a position to proffer solutions to some of the challenges that we have faced as a country together. A lot of interesting stories to touch on this morning. If you would like to react to some of these stories, please give us a call on 0807 777 9927. Remember, you have the space of 1 minute 60 seconds to make your comments and pass across your message. Let's keep it very, very civil. We will not entertain any form of insults on anybody or coming personally for anybody. We will not, entertain logical fallacies or fake news. Go straight to the point. Talk out of the conversation. Prefer solutions. What you think can be done better, rather than totally condemn the situation. 0807 777 9927. Views to be expressed is not in any way the position of Flu FM 92.7, but solely as expressed by the analysts that we have in the house this morning. Nicholas, let's say hello to you. Good morning to you, Nicholas.
Good morning.
How was the night?
Well, you can't believe what I saw this morning, what I had while coming.
How was that?
Oh, well, you remember those things I told you about this highway drive, these bikers, One nearly drove me off the road, and I asked him why. He said he was trying to vie away from, spiritual vehicles on the highway. Can you imagine?
Say that again, please.
Spiritual vehicles.
What is spiritual vehicle?
He told me that he could see spiritual vehicles, that I shouldn't worry, that he's trying to protect me. You guys are stupefied.
Oh, okay.
I agree when you say clinically.
I
agree now.
Oh,
completely.
But okay, you didn't see the spiritual vehicles, right?
I didn't see anything.
Maybe you could have just told him, whenever, if ever you ever get on his bike again, tell him, how can I see spiritual vehicles on the road to avoid them?
I don't intend to.
You don't intend to see them?
Of course, I couldn't ask him any question. I was frightened,
But anyways, thank God that you're safe,
safety,
truly,
yeah.
Really.
Absolutely.
Really, things that we see on the Nigerian roads.
Oh, come on.
If only we can spotlight them, there's going to be a lot too. There will definitely be a lot. I'm pretty sure he's not the only one who sees spiritual vehicles on the road.
Probably truckload of them. And let's get into the conversation. But before that, let me remind you to we're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube, and it's on Facebook at Flow FM NG and on YouTube at Flow FM 927. So you can get on any of these apps and get in on the live action happening in the studio right now. Let's talk about JAM. We have a situation now where JAM has enforced 16 years age limit for university admission, and therefore exceptional candidates. So if you're under 16 and you pass all of the examinations, that's UTME, WAEC, post-UTME, and GCE, that is O level, you're able to also get into the university with a 320 benchmark.
Okay. I think it's in consonance with global practice. A lot of controversy has hovered around that age thing.
For a while, yeah.
For a very long while. I think the age is it 18? Yeah, that was the former
18,
age.
Yeah.
By and large, you discover that you have young people who have passed the exam, who have, who despite their age, appear to be more mature than their age. You have instances like that. So rather than staying at home, you have a lot of them going to swear affidavits that they are 18 years. You have a lot of that. It has been happening for a very long time, as far as I can remember. So over time, it's just that, with improvement in education, curriculum changes, and the rest of them, you start having younger people enrolled in school. In those days when you go to school, what you have is you have your hand.
Your hand across your. If it doesn't,
they send you home.
Stay.
But now you see, because of urbanization, the need for the father and the mother to work, you have all this kindergarten, crèche, and things like that. So they introduce them at the very early age to the educational system. They mainstream them into the educational system. So by the time they are even 15, they've virtually completed everything, especially in this Gen Z age where you have a lot of educative cartoons. You have, of course, the smartphone is equally there too, even though I don't recommend that for minors, So before you know what's happening, what you have is you have people, even less than 15 already completing their secondary school education. So what happens to those? What happens to them? So you just keep them at home doing nothing? No. So that was why the federal government, and the Council on Education sat down and looked at it on the merit of it and discovered that, look, that policy appeared to be obsolete. So that's why there is that review. And of course, like I said, it's in keeping with global practice. You have instances where you've had about 20-year-old having a PhD. No, we are not recommending that you should take kids to secondary school and things like that. No, that's not what we're recommending. Where you have those special circumstances in developed economies, developed world, they usually have a special program for them. They have mentors. Those mentors stay with them, like parents, guardians, making sure that other aspects of their lives are compensated for. You understand? So it's not like they just go on campus like every other normal student. No, it's a special program where vis-a-vis going to classes, they are being mentored on other aspects of life, other aspects of education that makes them complete, that make them whole.
All right, well, there's a lot of conversation, with JAM that we're having this morning. Let's just take them one after the other. And this time around, it has to do with the registrar of JAM, and that's to do with additional universities, and because there is also a story here that says National Universities Commission suspends approval for new private universities for 1 year. And the position of Professor Isha Koloyede is that Nigeria should not have more universities, but rather expand the existing ones.
Well, that is a very good. I think I agree with him on that. Is it because you discover that you create more universities, but you don't equip them. Most of these so-called universities are, for want of better words, they are just glorified secondary schools. Let's be honest with ourselves. You see, when you go to some of these state universities, you understand what I'm saying. When they do the accreditation, how do they get accredited? How did they get the accreditation from NUC? Part of the requirement is the equipment and the staffing. So who goes there to do the accreditation for them? You discover that they had to go and poach, on part-time basis, lecturers from federal universities, established universities, to come and stand in so that they can get the temporary accreditation and continue running their programs. So already you have dearth of, a manpower, requisite, professors, to teach students. So when you create those universities, what you're simply doing is that you're just creating jobs for people who, because for some reason or the other, because they couldn't get a job, they went for a master's, then you then throw them into the university system without having the requisite skill to teach or to research at the university level. One other thing you need to ask yourself is, there is this common mistake we make. The university is not just a school. It's not really a school. It is first and foremost a research hub. That is what a university is. If you look at the university system, how it evolved, like the Oxford, the Cambridge, it's like masters coming, they have their apprentice, they sit down, jostle with, findings, theories and things like that, so they have their apprentice that they pass those knowledge to. So at a point, there is a ceremony where those apprentices are certified as academic. So it's essentially it's a hands-on thing. It's not just to come to classroom and just conduct lecture, but over time, we now have expansions. We now have systematized way of passing on knowledge. But rather than concentrating on what universities are meant to, they are meant to solve problems. They are meant to solve problems of the larger society. But what we now have is just like a secondary school. You just go acquire knowledge and that's it. That's why there is you have so many people being churned out from the high institutions, but there are no jobs. Why? Because the university is not meeting the need of the larger society. That is why you have all this problem of lack of employment and the rest of them. In fact, there was a time I was I was having a discussion with a retired professor, Professor Ojuakin Oju, formerly of microbiology, University of Ilorin. You know, he was telling me that each time he goes to do interview for lecturers, you know, when universities are when he's involved in the panel to interview, that the first thing he insists on is not whether you have a PhD. He insists on your first degree. That first degree tells him whether you are intelligent enough, you know, to fit into the system. So if you don't have a 2-1 at that level, you understand, maybe you now make up with a master's and the rest of them, you know. So much later in life, it shows that is not your original inclination. And I buy the idea. You understand? So it tells you how they used to think. That this, I'm talking of a seasoned professor. You understand? You know, he's been there. He's been all around. He's been outside this country. He's seen a lot of things. So when he tells, you know, he gave me an idea of what the university system is all about. It's about, you don't have that now. What you just have is that they just create a university just to get people employed. And that is not what a university is meant for. If you say you have agricultural problems, you understand, you need to get competent hands. Do we have those competent hands with all this Japa syndrome? Mm-hmm. We don't.
Mm-hmm. But if you look at specialized universities that we have across the country, universities of agriculture, we have our, I think we have them all around. That's of UNAB, FUNAB is there. Yeah. We have one in Utukpo. You have so many of them, you know, across technological schools here and there. Now, is it that they do not, all of this particular objective wasn't taken into consideration before the setup of some of those schools? And of course, there are still calls, you know, to create special universities. We have, I think there's one in Katsina State, in Katsina State, the military university and all of these things. Now, did they really put into consideration the purpose of setting up a university?
You see, let me tell you, one other big problem is NUC itself. Yeah, NUC itself. You see, like I was talking about recently, there was this same professor I was talking about. He had an occasion recently. There was this I've forgotten the name. It's, you know, it's like, you know, people writing in honor of him, and he came. You know, I read the citations. I had a lot of, I'm talking of top-notch lecturers talk. Then there was something he said about a particular university where, you know, they made certain recommendation. And the university administration came and said, look, NUC will not agree, even though this is the right thing to do. You know, you have a lot of instances like that. You say, I've spoken to a lot of professors who will tell you that, look, if the problem is funding, they can access funding for Nigerian universities from that the institutions abroad. But the problem is the Nigerian system. You understand? The moment, you know, of course, when there are funding from all these multilateral bodies, the system is thorough. You understand? There is no area where you do shortcut and the money goes to a private. No. But the moment they don't have where they can get their kickback, they will kill that program. They will kill it dead. So that is part of the problem. It's not as if that when they, you know, when they visualize, when maybe a university is set up for a special purpose, it's not as if you don't have people who sit down and think. Like the case of agriculture, for instance, we are talking of food sustenance and the rest of them, food sovereignty and like that is a specialized university. But you see, those nitty-gritty that will make it essentially functional, are we willing to go to hog?
Okay.
That's where the problem lies.
These universities of agriculture or specialized universities, how much have they met, you know, their aims of setup? Is what I'm asking you. Because again, you're saying the NUC, for example, the University of Agriculture now, food sustenance, and of course, you know what the situation is like in the country.
Okay, let me put it this way. You see, there was an interview myself and some of our colleagues conducted with a Professor Ande, University of Ilorin. He said, look, there are so many researches that the Nigerian system sponsored and they just allow it to go to waste. These are some of the things that they are supposed to take on board. You understand? So when you ask me whether are we meeting it or not, the answer is no. The universities are just there. You know, when there is a time to really ask for institutions to solve problem, we take it elsewhere. That is what we do in Nigeria. That's the honest truth. You understand? Look at the case of during 2023 election, you know, circuit. Peter Obi went to Egypt. He looked at the power system, and he came back and said every single thing that is generating power for Egypt was built by Egyptian engineers in their country. And it's not as if we don't have people who can build that in Nigeria. So if you ask me whether we've been meeting it, the answer is no, we haven't been. That is why we have all this problem. That's why you have all these gaps. That's why there is problem with food security. That's why we have, in fact, like Professor Ande put it, he said, look, the major problem is wastage. We have it in abundance. We are not making use of it. Both in terms of university, both in terms of researches that have been conducted that would have solved problem. We don't make use of them. So I think putting a moratorium, on registering university, while I think it's a very good idea, but you see, it will be a waste of time if we don't really sit down and do an introspection of what we really need to do. Where are we really missing out? So you see, I can go on and on and on. Is it the case of the last convocation ceremony we had at the University of Ilorin, where the Vice Chancellor told me that the banking system can't even sustain patenting of findings from university? Is that is equally an issue that is there? So it tells you of all those gaps that we're talking about.
Okay. Well, let's move away from that conversation and on to this one. About 800 ex-Boko Haram fighters are undergoing rehabilitation. The Defense Headquarters revealed that 800 former Boko Haram fighters who surrendered are undergoing de-radicalization as part of Operation Safe Corridor to facilitate their reintegration into society. About 129,000 of them have been detained, but only a select group, which is the 800, have been chosen for rehabilitation.
Yeah, you see, one of the ways that was proposed, by the security wongs, when at the advent of terrorism in Nigeria, was they discovered that most of the people doing this insurgency are actually young, misguided Nigerians. So you see, sometimes it's not all about hammer all the time. Sometimes you look at whether it's a case of being misguided, and they need to bring them back to see the society as their own. When you are able to bring them into the system again, you stand to gain a lot from them, because they are resource persons for you in knowing exactly what are those agitations that make them do what they do. Then they can even provide you with intelligence. You see, while as much as I salute that, those efforts, I am looking forward to seeing some of the gains, because it is supposed to bring some gains. In terms of let us start seeing people that have been rehabilitated and how they are doing so far. Like something similar happened in the Niger Delta, if you recall. When a blanket amnesty was given to the Niger Delta, militants, for the submission of arms. Some of them were taken out to train. They trained them and the rest of them. And one of the biggest beneficiary is the man that is in charge of Tantita security. That is the government Ekpemu Polo. And that man has been doing fantastically well with his organization in terms of securing the pipeline facilities. You understand? Because you see, what government discovered was that these people understand the terrain very well. They know the terrain even more than your navy. So, they brought them on board, took their knowledge, integrated them into the security, architecture of that riverine area, and they were able to secure some level of security, make some level of security for our pipeline and all, exploration and things like that. So I think it is that idea that they are taking up north. You understand? And that is what resulted in what we are talking about now. But like in the case of this, we would like at least this 10 years or so, we should start seeing some of these people coming out, giving let's see what they have been able to do. Have they been integrated into JTF? Because that was what they did at some point, integrated them into JTF, civilian JTF in some of this insurgent areas. They integrated them into, as guides, as providing backup to the armies in the fight against insurgency. So we'd like to see more of that.
All right, so Nicholas, I would just like to ask you a few questions further. What is how close is the situation of the Niger Delta to that of northern Nigeria in terms of the insurgency? And then we know the basis of the Niger Delta agitation. It was basic natural resource control of it, and that of northern Nigeria. You and I have an idea of what it is like. There is no physical resource that these people were agitating for, or trying to protect, or trying to put as their own, or put a patent to it. Secondly, if you look at it, you say it's an ideological war. Now that of the Niger Delta, you can trace them to say, okay, these are leaders of these groups. Have we been able to find leaders for this group, and then get them to talk, and then get them to drop arms? 3, what are the dangers in this de-radicalization process? If you're looking at the gains, what are the potential dangers to the people of the immediate community? Because these were once people who inflicted so much terror on their people.
Well, that's quite a handful, but I'll try to take them one after the other.
I'll remind you if you go off.
Now, first, there are resources involved. Make no mistake about that. See, let me tell you one thing. You see, every conflict that has ever happened is economic in nature. Yes, they might put up ideologies and things like that. It's just a smoke screen. In fact, I was just very early this morning. I woke up around 3:30 in the morning when I started, going through my, I stumbled on, a video interview of Adams Oshiomhole. I think it was in the Senate, where he made that allegation that retired generals are involved in the illegal mining. You see, all this insurgency thing we are talking about was essentially about resources. At some point you have a kind of explanation that kind of bore this out when the former president said it's about herdsman farmer clashes. It's about resources, it's about land, availability of land. That is, even though I don't buy that I think it's just a smoke screen. That's still a smoke screen. But you see, when you see the amount of illegal mining that is happening in all these areas, in fact, the similarity with what is happening in Niger Delta is close, very close. The only difference is that you have the autochthonous indigenous people fomenting the insurgency. But in this case, it's like you have extraneous, factors. Extraneous factors coming in, to displace the indigenous people. You understand? So that is what I am saying there. So we are talking of people they are bringing in people that are not even Nigerians. Give them arms, to displace people so that they can have access to those to the mineral resources in all these areas. Now, there was something Oshiomhole even said. He said that under President Buhari, he wrote a letter while he was the chairman of APC. He wrote a letter to the president saying that a retired general of a northern extraction told him this: please, you have to act on it. You have to use the same force you used on the Niger Delta on these people. You understand? So that takes care of whether it has to do with resources. So it's just a similarity in all this. That is, it's always economic at the end of it. It's always about resources. You understand? So yeah, the second the aspect. What's the second aspect?
Now, I asked you again what we are looking at the gains in all of these things. What are the potential dangers?
We have started seeing some of the dangers. You have those that were already allegedly de-radicalized, going back to their vomit. It happens. Right. But you see, again, that can't be ruled out. You understand? Because you are dealing with humans. You can't have 100%. You can't have 100% success. You see, what we should ask for is what is the rate of relapse. You understand? If federal government is consistent with it, even up to this point, it means they have seen that the gains far outweighs the minuses. You understand? In most of these instances, we don't always have the facts. We only deal with what has been put in the public domain and what we are privy to and we can say on air.
All right. But again, in a minute before we move on to another story, because again, this is a national conversation that every Nigerian should have a deep understanding of. Because again, some of the salient issues at the time we read in the papers that it was a lot of unemployment rates, idleness on the part
of course,
Nigerian youths and all. Now these issues are still prevalent.
Exactly.
Now will it take out, even if we de-radicalize some of these,
it won't.
Will it then the salient issues that started all of these things are still very, very there. So
absolutely.
how do we deal with this issue?
You see, ironically, I think was it in 2016 when former President Goodluck Jonathan I think it was in Switzerland, he gave that speech where he said that when you look at the number of out-of-school children, he gave his statistics of them, and what he saw, what you see is that Yobe, Borno, and I think one other state, had the highest number of out-of-school children, and incidentally, all this insurgency happens there. So essentially, the fact is that unless we do a lot in terms of human development, health, education, infrastructure, food sovereignty, except you do put, that is, you over concentrate on it, and you can't over concentrate on those things, we will always continue to have this problem. No matter how much you radicalize, you will always have, because the root cause has not been addressed. A lot of Nigerians, especially up north, are living below the poverty index. So people like that are exceptionally vulnerable, for people who want to use them to foment trouble. You understand? So it's a problem that is endemic, and unless we start tackling it from under, what is the root cause? Let's start getting most of our kids back to school. And I don't just mean school. I'm talking of safe schools. Schools that has an outcome. It's not just putting up walls and you teach them nothing. You understand? So, you see, all these policies about change of curriculum and all those things, we need to see it actually impact on some of these children, so that we can, that is the only way we can, have a lasting, solution to all these problems.
Okay. Before we round off on the analysis this morning, let's talk about this one. The IGP has warned officers against rights violations and misconduct. Has talked about officers not to carry assault rifles, especially when they're dressed in civilian attire, and also cautioned against the unauthorized transfer of cases. He also urged Nigerians to verify information from official police sources and remain vigilant. Each time I hear things like this from the IGP of Nigerian police, not just Egbetokun, there's this mental switch off that I have, because I've had it over and over and over again. You understand? Now look at all those lists that he made. Don't carry rifles in
Mufti
and things like that. Don't do what and what again. Let us take a trip across the highway. You still see those officers doing that same thing. You understand? So, the thing is that, the police, like most institutions in Nigeria, are facing structural problems. Structural problems in terms of, when when a policy is passed, how effective are they being effected? You understand? So I think there is a problem along that chain of command that the police ought to do something about. So this. I've had things like this.
So how do they implement it? Because again, these are law enforcement agencies.
Let me tell you one thing. Till tomorrow, they will tell you that one of the most effective IG we had in recent time is one Mohammed that served under Mohammed Diko. No, is it? Yeah, I think it's Diko that served when President Goodluck Jonathan was there. At least 4 years before he retired. Diko, yeah. He was the most effective IG that I have ever known. You understand? How was he able to? It was not about this noise. He would just tell you that this and this is the new this, and I'm talking of up to the point where they no longer extort motorists on the highway, because I traveled a lot around that period. Police actually stopped collecting tolls. What happened? What he simply did was what was due to them, he gave them. It's as simple as that. So you see, you can mount a lot of platitudes anytime.
But again, Nicholas, at the police and officers being denied anything at the moment, because if you compare salaries at that time and till now, I think there is a huge difference. And
let's
in terms of retirement benefits and all of these things, except maybe we're looking at the condition of service. Again, if you look at the police barracks, it's in dilapidated states. If you go to their police posts all around the country,
you have said it all. You understand? See, what is salary compared to the hazards that they have to go through? Okay, when a policeman dies, how soon do you pay his widow? How soon? How soon do you pay him? How soon do you eject him from the barracks?
Nicholas, these are issues that we should also pick up. Well, really, tomorrow gives us another opportunity to do. We hope that it's something that will resurface. But I think we should keep it up pick it up from there tomorrow, Nicholas. Yeah. And if my colleague agrees with me, we'll pick it up. Keep our conversation from there tomorrow. Thank you, Nicholas, for coming this morning. The view expressed is not in any way the position of Flow FM, but solely as expressed by the analyst Nicholas Nwaruna here this morning. Thank you for joining us. We're back tomorrow, 8 to 8:30. I am Adedayo Adeyemi.
And I'm Danielle Shitta-Bey. Thank you for joining us.
Here to light up the city, 92.7, go with the flow. Feel your day with us.
We've never achieved anything from the subsidy remover. Instead, everything is going higher, fuel up, food stuff is striking up.
Look at us now, there is nothing, we are starving.
As you can see, there is no light and it makes us to lose customer.
The government really needs to redefine its security architecture.
Every day, Nigerians get up to complain of one thing or the other about the affairs of the country. From poor electricity to insecurity, healthcare, education, and the economy. This is not to say some level of progress is not being recorded, but how much of the impact is felt by the people. Do you have an opinion or comments to share about the current situation in Nigeria? Your Go With The Flow station, Flow FM 92.7, has provided a platform for you to have your say every Friday from 10 to 10:30 a.m. Say it the way you feel it. Have your say.
Araba Radio.